I dedicated my entire life to my father's construction company. Every promotion, every innovation, every million in revenue, all achieved through my sweat and sacrifice. My son Thomas was my world, the light that kept me going through 14 months of grueling cancer treatments. When he passed, I threw myself back into work thinking the company was my second home. Then came those words that shattered everything. Your son's death is why you're getting demoted. My own father said this to my face. Before I tell you how I transformed this betrayal into my greatest triumph, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit subscribe and that like button if you have ever had to rebuild your life from ashes. Growing up in Pittsburgh during the 80s, my father Jackson Williams was a larger-than-life figure. A self-made man who started Williams Construction from nothing in 1985, he was my childhood hero. I still remember the smell of sawdust and concrete when he would occasionally take me to job sites. Even then, I was fascinated by the architectural drawings more than the actual hammering and drilling, something my father noticed with disapproval. Kenneth, dreaming about pretty buildings will not put food on the table, he would say. Construction is about getting your hands dirty and understanding costs, materials, and deadlines. Despite my creative inclinations, I respected him enough to follow his guidance. While I excelled in art and design classes throughout school, I dutifully applied to business programs for college. I was accepted to Penn State with a partial scholarship, making my father grunt with what passed for approval in our household. My college summers were spent working at Williams Construction, not enjoying carefree days like my classmates. I started as a laborer, then moved to basic carpentry, electrical work, plumbing, and eventually estimating. By my senior year, I knew every aspect of the construction business from the ground up. When graduation came, I had job offers from several prestigious firms in New York and Chicago. My business professors encouraged me to take them. Instead, at 22, I returned home and joined my father's company full-time. So you finally came to your senses, my father said when I told him my decision. There was no welcome party, no special treatment. The next day I was assigned to a crew rebuilding a restaurant damaged by fire. The foreman, Marcus, looked at me sideways. College boy, huh? Hope those soft hands can hold a hammer. I worked twice as hard as anyone else that summer, earning grudging respect. My father never acknowledged my efforts directly, but I noticed he started bringing up my ideas in meetings. By 25, I had developed new bidding strategies that caught the attention of the State Transportation Department. Using detailed cost analysis and innovative scheduling methods, we won our first major government contract, a 3-bridge rehabilitation project worth $15 million. It was a game-changer for Williams Construction. That same year, I met Stephanie at an industry fundraiser. She was working for an architectural firm with bright eyes that lit up when she talked about sustainable building practices. We connected instantly, finding in each other the perfect balance of practicality and vision. 3 months later, we were talking about marriage. My father was surprisingly civil at our wedding when I was 26. She has a good head on her shoulders, he told me gruffly at the reception, which from him was high praise. The next week, he promoted me to operations manager. The following years were a blur of 18-hour days and rapid growth. I developed proprietary project management software that saved the company millions in wasted materials and labor hours. My father remained suspicious of computer solutions but could not argue with the results. By 30, I had expanded Williams Construction into 3 neighboring states. Our annual revenue tripled, and we employed over 200 people. My father, approaching 65, began mentioning retirement, though I knew he would never fully step away. When Stephanie told me she was pregnant, it was the happiest day of my life. My father, typically stoic, actually smiled when I told him he would be a grandfather. A new Williams to carry on the business, he said, patting my shoulder. It was the closest thing to a hug we had shared in years. Thomas Jackson Williams was born on a snowy December morning. The moment I held him, my priorities shifted. The company remained important, but this tiny human represented something pure and untainted by ambition or competition. Fatherhood changed me. I started leaving the office by 6 to be home for dinner and bedtime stories. My father noticed and disapproved, but I stood my ground. When my father suffered his first heart attack, I was 32. Thomas was 4, starting to show interest in building blocks and simple tools. My father was hospitalized for 2 weeks, and I stepped in as acting CEO. The transition was seamless. I had effectively been running daily operations for years anyway. Under my leadership, the company not only maintained stability, but thrived. We secured the largest contract in our history, a downtown revitalization project worth $75 million. Our profit margins improved by 15% through the implementation of my integrated supply chain management system. When my father returned to work part-time, he seemed momentarily humbled by how well everything functioned without him. "You have done good work, Kenneth," he said during our first meeting back. "When the time is right, the presidency will be yours." I believed him. Why would I not? I had dedicated my life to Williams Construction, turning a successful local business into a regional powerhouse. The company was as much mine as his, or so I thought. Thomas grew into a bright, creative 8-year-old who loved visiting construction sites. I would outfit him with his own hard hat and safety vest, explaining the purpose of each machine and tool. His eyes would light up watching the cranes lift massive steel beams into place. "Dad, when I grow up, can I design buildings and then build them too?" he would ask. "You can do anything you set your mind to, buddy." I would tell him, secretly pleased that he seemed to have inherited both my interest in design and my father's practical building sense. Despite my demanding work schedule, I made sure to carve out quality family time. One summer, Thomas and I built an elaborate treehouse in our backyard. Stephanie documented the entire process, creating a photo album that became one of our most treasured possessions. It was during a regular soccer game that I first noticed something was wrong. Thomas, usually energetic and quick, seemed winded after just a few minutes of play. The coach substituted him early, and I saw my son sit heavily on the bench, his face pale, despite the moderate exertion. Later that week, Stephanie pointed out unusual bruising on his legs. "Kids get bruises all the time," I said, trying to reassure her, but the worry had already taken root in my mind too. After a series of tests and a bone marrow biopsy that Thomas faced with incredible bravery, we received the diagnosis that would change everything: a rare form of leukemia requiring immediate and aggressive treatment. The next day, I walked into my father's office and explained the situation. To his credit, he showed genuine concern. "Take whatever time you need," he said. "Family comes first." For the first few months, I created a flexible work schedule that allowed me to support Thomas through his treatments while maintaining my responsibilities at the company. I would work remotely from the hospital, attend virtual meetings during his naps, and come into the office when Stephanie could be with him. As Thomas's treatment progressed, there were promising signs. His initial response to chemotherapy was positive, and for a brief period, we dared to hope for a quick resolution. During this time, I returned to a more regular work schedule, diving into the preparations for a major airport expansion bid that could potentially define the next decade for Williams Construction. It was during this period that my father introduced his nephew, my cousin Anthony, into the company. "I thought we could use another family member to lighten your load," my father explained. The decision had been made without consulting me, despite my position as acting CEO. Anthony had minimal construction experience, but possessed a smooth-talking personality that impressed my father. With his business school degree and designer suits, he looked the part of a modern executive. What he lacked in practical knowledge, he made up for in confidence and charm. While I focused on both Thomas's treatment and finalizing the airport bid, Anthony ingratiated himself with my father and the board members. I was too preoccupied to recognize the threat until it was too late. When Thomas suffered a serious setback, a dangerous infection due to his compromised immune system, I took an emergency 3-week leave. During those terrifying days and nights at the hospital, the company was the furthest thing from my mind. Upon my return, I discovered Anthony had revised our airport expansion bid, removing several of my innovative construction methods that would have significantly increased our profit margin. The company still won the contract, but at much thinner profits than my original plan projected. At the company-wide meeting announcing the airport contract, my father praised Anthony publicly. "Fresh thinking and bold moves won us this project," he declared, while barely acknowledging my years of groundwork that had positioned us to compete for the contract in the first place. As Thomas's condition deteriorated despite the best medical efforts, I reduced my hours at work to spend more time at the hospital. My father's initial understanding hardened into criticism. "The company cannot run itself, Kenneth," he said during one particularly tense meeting. "Anthony has had to take on many of your responsibilities." I was too emotionally drained to fight back. Between the hospital and the office, I was existing on 4 hours of sleep and pure determination. Meanwhile, Anthony was gradually taking over my responsibilities, holding private meetings with my father and making decisions that should have required my approval. After 14 months of brutal treatments, hospital stays, brief recoveries, and crushing setbacks, Thomas passed away peacefully with Stephanie and me at his bedside. He was 9 years old. The grief was all-consuming. I took bereavement leave and completely disconnected from the company for 2 months. Stephanie and I leaned on each other, trying to navigate a world that suddenly made no sense without our son in it. When I finally returned to work, I threw myself into the business to manage my grief. The familiar routines and problems provided some distraction from the constant ache of loss. But I immediately noticed the company atmosphere had changed. Staff members treated me differently, with sympathy but also uncertainty, as if unsure of my position. My suspicions grew when I discovered Anthony had moved into a larger office, adjacent to my father's. Walking through the project management department, I learned that several members of my team had been reassigned, reporting structures altered, without my knowledge or consent. Rather than confront these changes immediately, I focused on a project that had been forming in my mind during my absence. Drawing from conversations with Stephanie about sustainable building and memories of Thomas's love for nature, I began developing a new eco-friendly construction method that could revolutionize our industry. Working late nights in my increasingly isolated corner of the company, I perfected an approach combining recycled materials, innovative insulation techniques, and renewable energy integration that could dramatically reduce both construction costs and environmental impact. After securing interest from a major environmental certification organization, I prepared a comprehensive presentation showing how this method could reduce costs by 40% while creating a powerful marketing advantage in an increasingly eco-conscious market. I requested a meeting with my father to present this innovation. I was made to wait 3 days, something that would have been unthinkable before Thomas's illness. When the meeting was finally scheduled, I arrived to find Anthony unexpectedly present, sitting in what had traditionally been my chair, at my father's right hand. Throughout my detailed presentation, my father seemed disinterested, checking his phone and asking few questions. Anthony, meanwhile, took copious notes and occasionally exchanged glances with my father. I concluded with projections showing a potential $50 million annual revenue increase if we implemented this approach company-wide. The presentation was solid, perhaps my best work. I waited for feedback, expecting at least acknowledgement of the potential. After a tense silence, my father exchanged a look with Anthony before turning to me. "Kenneth, we need to discuss your role in the company moving forward," he said flatly. I felt a sudden chill. "What do you mean I am acting CEO next in line for president? That has been the plan for years." My father cleared his throat. "Your son's death is why you are getting demoted." The words hit me like a physical blow. I must have misheard. "Excuse me. Your grief has clearly affected your judgment," he continued, gesturing toward my presentation. "This environmental nonsense is not what Williams Construction does. We need stable leadership right now, not experimental pet projects." He went on to announce that Anthony would become president, while I would head a smaller regional division. He suggested this was for my own good, a chance to recover from my loss without the pressures of executive leadership. My shock quickly turned to rage. The injustice of it all. After decades of sacrifice, after building his company into what it was today after losing my son, was too much to bear. "I have given everything to this company," I said, my voice rising. "My youth, my ideas, my sweat. I have quadrupled our revenue, created systems that make us more efficient than any competitor, brought in the largest contracts in our history." My father dismissed my contributions with a wave. "The company succeeds because of my vision and connections. You have done good work, but Anthony has the kind of bold thinking we need moving forward." The argument escalated, years of resentment surfacing. Every sacrifice, every missed vacation, every time I had chosen the company over my own interests. All thrown back in my face. "You will regret this when you see what I build on my own," I declared, walking out of the office. That same day, I cleared out my personal belongings. My loyal assistant Sandra, who had been with me for 8 years, secretly provided copies of my innovations and client contacts. "They do not deserve you, Mr. Williams," she whispered, as she helped me pack. In the parking lot, my father intercepted me for one final confrontation. I returned my company car keys, dropping them into his palm without a word. The drive home in Stephanie's car was a blur. Halfway there, the full weight of what had happened crashed down on me. I pulled over to the side of the road, gripping the steering wheel, as waves of grief, betrayal, and uncertainty washed over me. When I finally made it home and told Stephanie everything, she took my hands in hers. Her eyes, still carrying their own grief for Thomas, now held a fierce determination. "We will build something better," she said. "Something Thomas would be proud of." The initial weeks after leaving Williams Construction were dark. I questioned every life choice, every sacrifice I had made for a company that discarded me when I was most vulnerable. Depression settled over me, like a heavy fog, making even simple decisions difficult. Stephanie, despite dealing with her own grief, became my anchor. She gently but firmly suggested grief counseling, not just for Thomas, but for the loss of my professional identity as well. I reluctantly attended, skeptical that talking could heal such profound wounds. My breakthrough came during my third session. The therapist, a soft-spoken woman with penetrating insight, asked a simple question. What would make Thomas proud? The answer surfaced immediately. Integrity, compassion, creating something meaningful. Not wealth or status, but impact. Thomas had always cared deeply about nature and the environment, collecting recycling around the neighborhood, even before his illness. With renewed purpose, I reconnected with my college architecture professor, Dr. Harrison, who had always believed in my design abilities. Over coffee in his university office, surrounded by models and blueprints, I shared my vision for a construction company that would combine practical building expertise with architectural innovation and environmental responsibility. The industry needs this, he said, offering to connect me with former students now working in sustainable design. In our guest bedroom, I created a business plan for Thomas Sustainable Builders, a company with a mission that would honor my son's memory and values. Stephanie, with her background in architectural firm operations, helped refine the financial projections. Reaching out to industry contacts, I discovered many had resented my father's old-school business practices, his hardball negotiations, corner-cutting, and resistance to innovation. Several expressed immediate interest in working with my new venture. Our first project came from Greener Tomorrow, a nonprofit that needed to renovate their headquarters with a limited budget. Though small, the project allowed me to demonstrate how sustainable building could be both cost-effective and beautiful. To fund the company's launch, we maxed out personal credit cards and invested our entire savings. Stephanie returned to work at her old architectural firm to provide stable income while I built the business. We sold our larger home, moving to a modest apartment to reduce expenses. I hired 3 talented young engineers who shared my passion for sustainable building. Together, we developed an enhanced version of the eco method my father had rejected, eventually securing a patent for a modular construction system using recycled materials. The first 6 months were a struggle. We narrowly made payroll several times, and I often worked 20-hour days to ensure project quality while minimizing labor costs. There were moments when I questioned whether I had made a catastrophic mistake. Our breakthrough came unexpectedly. The city announced a competitive bid for a sustainable housing development, a project Williams Construction would typically pursue. With nothing to lose, we submitted a comprehensive proposal showcasing our innovative methods. When we won the contract over my father's company, the industry took notice. Local business journals ran features on the Williams Construction heir, who had struck out on his own, with a focus on sustainability. I made sure every article mentioned the company was named for my late son and his environmental values. Meanwhile, Anthony's poor management was causing quality issues at Williams Construction. Projects ran over budget, deadlines were missed, and longtime clients began looking elsewhere. Former colleagues began quietly reaching out, asking to join Thomas Sustainable Builders. I was selective, bringing on only those who shared our vision and values. By the time we completed our first major project, under budget and winning a regional Green Building Award, we had a team of 15 dedicated professionals. Press coverage highlighted our innovative approach, often contrasting it with the old-school methods still employed by Williams Construction. One industry magazine dubbed us the future of building while referring to my father's company as a fading dynasty. Within 18 months, we had grown to 50 employees. Our reputation for quality, innovation, and environmental responsibility attracted clients willing to pay premium prices. Annual revenue exceeded $30 million. Remarkable growth for a startup in the construction industry. Inspired by Thomas's memory, I implemented company policies that prioritized work-life balance. Employees received generous family leave, flexible scheduling, and wellness benefits. We closed the office for major holidays and encouraged vacation time. All practices my father had considered wasteful. Then came the call I never expected. My father's attorney requested a meeting to discuss a matter of mutual interest. Curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed. The attorney revealed that Williams Construction was facing bankruptcy. Anthony had mismanaged finances, and as investigations were beginning to uncover, had been embezzling funds. Major clients had abandoned the company, and banks were calling in loans. 2 days later, my father arrived at my office unannounced. The year since I had seen him had aged him dramatically. His hair had turned completely white, and he walked with a slight stoop. "Kenneth," he said when my assistant showed him in, "I need your help." The conversation that followed was surreal. My father, who had never admitted a mistake in his life, confessed that firing me had been an error in judgment. Anthony had charmed his way into power, and then systematically looted the company while driving away key clients with incompetence and arrogance. "I was wrong," my father said, his voice breaking. "I am asking you to consider a partnership. Together we could save Williams Construction." I studied the man who had built and then destroyed the company I had once loved. "There is no partnership possible between us," I said. "But I will consider acquiring Williams Construction at fair market value, which frankly is not much at this point." His face flushed with anger, then resignation. "Please do not let my company die," he pleaded. "I built it from nothing." "It stopped being your company," I replied, "when you valued loyalty less than control." Before making my final decision about the acquisition, I consulted with Stephanie. We sat on our apartment balcony, watching the sunset over the city skyline. "What does your heart tell you?" she asked. "Part of me wants to reject him completely," I admitted. "But there are 200 employees at Williams Construction who did nothing wrong. They do not deserve to lose their jobs because of my father's and Anthony's actions." The next day, I visited Thomas's grave. Sitting beside the small headstone decorated with colorful pinwheels that spun in the breeze, I found clarity about what truly mattered. I proceeded with the acquisition but structured it compassionately. Every Williams Construction employee would be offered a position in the merged company with salaries and benefits matching our more generous standards. The company would continue under the Thomas Sustainable Builders name, honoring my son's memory rather than my father's legacy. My father was offered a consulting role with no management authority, a position that would allow him to contribute his extensive industry knowledge while keeping him away from decision-making power. At my first company-wide address to the merged staff, I shared my personal journey and vision for our future. "This company is built on 3 pillars," I told them. "Excellence in our work, sustainability in our methods, and humanity in how we treat each other. These values are not negotiable." With the acquisition funds, we established the Thomas Foundation, providing college scholarships for employees' children, and funding environmental education in schools. It was another way to ensure my son's short life would continue to create positive change in the world. My father gradually accepted his new reality. Initially bitter about his reduced role, he eventually began mentoring younger staff members, sharing the practical knowledge that had made him successful while becoming more open to innovative approaches. After 3 years of healing, Stephanie and I decided to try for another child. Our daughter Olivia brought new joy into our lives. Though nothing could ever replace Thomas, her arrival helped our family feel whole again. I made sure she knew about her older brother through stories and photographs. Thomas Sustainable Builders continued to grow, winning a national award for workplace culture and environmental innovation. Our proprietary methods became industry standards, and we expanded into commercial, residential, and institutional construction across 12 states. My business philosophy, forged through loss and betrayal, prioritized people over profits and long-term sustainability over short-term gains. Surprisingly, this approach resulted in stronger financial performance than my father's cutthroat methods ever had. The reconciliation with my father remained limited, professional respect without full personal forgiveness. During one rare candid conversation, he admitted that Anthony's betrayal had helped him understand his own mistakes. "I confused loyalty with obedience," he said. "I never gave you proper credit because I feared becoming irrelevant." As the company approached its 5th anniversary, valued at over $200 million, we created a memorial garden at headquarters, planting Thomas's favorite trees, red maples that turned brilliant colors each fall. My father's health began to decline, and during one of my visits to his care facility, we had a peaceful conversation about legacy and regrets. "You built something better than I ever could," he acknowledged. "It took me too long to see that." On Olivia's 5th birthday, I brought her to the company headquarters. Standing in the memorial garden, watching her race between the trees her brother had inspired, I reflected on how loss had transformed my understanding of true wealth. True success, I realized, has nothing to do with buildings erected or profits earned. It lies in the lives we touch, the values we uphold, and the love we share. Thomas taught me that in his 9 short years, and his legacy continues to guide every decision I make. I am still building, but now I measure growth not in dollars or square footage, but in positive impact. Each sustainable structure, each family-supporting job, each scholarship granted, these are the true monuments to my son. What betrayal or loss has reshaped your life? Have you ever had to start over and build something new from nothing? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Your support helps me continue sharing these life lessons. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes our greatest triumphs rise from our deepest wounds.